Hey, good morning everyone, and I hope everyone is doing well. In this video, I'm going to speak about how to install DHCP, and later on, I'm going to talk how to create the DHCP scope, which I'll do step by step and check if the DHCP assign an IP address for my client machine. So the Windows 1101 is my client machine, and the Windows Server 2016 is my server. So let's begin with. First, I'm going to speak about what is DHCP, and then later on I'll start creating the DHCP server. So what is DHCP? It is basically stand for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. It is a service that automatically assign IP address and network configuration to devices on a network, and this helps devices like computer, printers, and phone connects to the internet or communicate within the network without manual setup. For example, imagine DHCP is as a hotel receptionist. When a guest arrives, the receptionist assigns them a room IP address from the available ones. Let me tell you what is DHCP, how it works. The DHCP basically, let's say the device request a device like a printer, let's say, and ask for an IP when it joined to the network. And then the DHCP server responds. The DHCP server assigns an available IP address, as I explained earlier just now, and then device connects. The device uses the assigned IP to communicate. So when I connect my phone to Wi-Fi, it gets IP from the DHCP server. So let me let me let me create the DHCP server, and then we'll move on. So the first thing, you need to go to manage and then click on add a rule and features and click next, and again next, next, and then in here you need to check mark the DHCP here add a feature, and then hit again next, 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 and then install. So again, I'm using a bridge adapter, and with a bridge adapter I have to configure IPv6 and IPv4 in order to communicate my client machine with the server, right? So in order to do that, you can do it either way. As I explained in my other videos, I was able to join my client machine. I just want to emphasize and bring it back. I was trying to join my client machine with the server using IPv6 using bridge adapter or disable the IPv6. So since I don't like to disable it, so I added some IPv6 entries, which I'll show it to you later, both on a client and server. So once I install this DHCP, I'll show the other step soon. So let's wait for this, and once it completes, we'll do the other steps. It takes like a few minutes. So while it's installing, let me open the command prompt cmd, of course, as administrator, it's almost done, and type ipconfig /all to see information about this server. So the hostname is security hacker, and the DNS suffix is malik.com, and DHCP enabled no. That is because I'll explain it later. And auto configuration enabled yes. And this is our IPv6 address. Before, I used to have IPv6 that's in the short form of this, not too short but just in a medium size, that was provided basically from our ISP. But since I'm no longer having that IP IPv6. I'm using only this one, and this is the IP address. So just keep in mind our IPv6 end with a 45C5, and our IP address of the server is end with 241. And let me go back to the Windows, and the reason I just want to say a little bit about this, the reason the DHCP enable set to no, because I put manually IP address in IPv6 on Ethernet in IPv4 configuration. That's why it says no. Once if I do it obtain automatically, it will say yes later on. But I'm not gonna obtain it automatically because I don't want to have issues in the future. If I make it obtain it automatically, I'll have a hard time to join the other client machines with this server. So I should always keep this on, even though I have a DHCP server, DHCP scope on my server installed. Still, I don't want to obtain IPv4 and IPv6 on the server automatically. I want to leave it as a static, both of them, IPv4 and IPv6. So let me go back to the Windows machine, and on the Windows machine I'll show you the IP addresses. We will also check connectivity issue as well. So while it's loading, let me go back to again to the process. It is almost done. It is already done, but if you see the yellow warning sign there in notification, that means we are still not done. So in order to complete this, you need to click complete DHCP configuration. Let's click here next. This is the description. This is authorization, which is the username is Malik / administrator, and click commit. So it is good. The creating security group is done. Please restart the DHCP server service on the target computer for the security group to be effective, and authorizing DHCP server is done. So hit close and close this as well. And if you see here, DHCP is here, comes up. Also, if you still see the warning sign, you need to click in here. Like, let's say you have a warning sign here, you need to click here and fix it. Or sometimes the warning sign goes away by restarting your server. So since I'm not getting any bad error or something, and I have DHCP installed, let me check the Windows. Yeah, the Windows has been logged in. I don't want to miss this. Right after this this CMD, I'm going to install basically the DHCP scope, right? And then we'll move on. So you need to open the CMD command as an administrator. So let me type ipconfig here /all. So it says DHCP enable. This is also set to no, as I explained. That is because we put IPv4 IPv6 manual. That is because I was joining this client machine with my server, so therefore I joined it manually. I configured manually IPv4 and IPv6. And if you see, the host name is hacker and the primary DNS suffix is malik.com, which is this client is a part of my domain controller, which is malik.com. And let me go to the setting of this client machine. Or I'll go later. I'll just leave this. Go back to the server and go to the tools I want to show because just to make sure if this client machine is still a part of my domain and it is still there connected with my server. So you need to double click on a computer. As you see, the hacker machine has been connected, and it should be in undermalik.com. So you can also create a user, which I already explained this on my previous videos. So let me install DHCP scope. First I need to tell you what is DHCP scope. So a DHCP scope is a range of IP addresses that the server can assign to devices, and I can configure setting like a default gateway, DNS, and subnet mask in the scope. The example will be if my scope is 192.168.1.10 to 192.168.1.100, the DHCP server can assign any IP within that range. So let's say the DHCP assigned start will be 192.168.18.11 or the 192.168.18.10. So the DHCP will keep assigning by number each each IP address for each devices. So let me go step by step and do the DHCP scope. So in order to do that, you need to right click on DHCP and click DHCP manager, or go to the tools here and click on DHCP. Let me do it this way. So now I'm in a DHCP. You need to expand this and expand IPv4. Right click on IPv4 new scope. In a new scope you need to click on next. Let's say I will name it the DHCP Wi-Fi underscore scope, and then for the description I'll write IP range for office LAN devices. IP range for office LAN devices. So this will be IP range for office LAN devices, and then click next. And the start IP address, as explained earlier, it will be 192.168.18. Let's say started from 11 up to 192.168.18.100, right? The DHCP will keep assigning IP address start from 11 to 100, so it will be start from 11, 12, 13, 14 up to 100 devices. So let me let me click on next to see the another setting. So the type IP address range that we want to exclude. So in this example, in this step, sorry, you need to type the IP address that you want to keep it for one device. Let's say it's like assigning a permanent room in a hotel for VIP guest, and I'll keep this IP address for my printer. I don't want my DHCP to assign address for this. I just want to manually use this IP address for my printer, which is easy to troubleshoot, right? Like I reserve IP address for my printer, so it always keep the same IP address. Let's say I want to reserve this IP address 192.168.18.11, and again 192.168.18.11, and I want to add, so I just add this IP address. So I want to use this for my printer, right? This ensures that the printer is easy to locate on the network. So click on next, and I will give for this one, when it will expire, I'll give 999 3 times 9 because this is the maximum value, and it is basically the maximum value. Like, I want to use the IP address for permanently, so you need to set the lease duration to unlimited if supported by your DHCP server, or the maximum value allowed in this, as I just typed 999 and hours is 0, minutes is 0. This means that the lease duration is 999 days, or about 2 years and 8 months. Devices will keep their IP address for this period unless they disconnect and fail or renew. So let me click on next. I hope you got this. And yes, I want to configure. This is the router or a gateway, 192.168.18.1, and click on add next. I want to type the server name, CURITY security hacker, and click on resolve. And this is the IP address which I showed earlier. Let me go back. That just displayed after typing my server name, and click next. Again, I want to type this one more time for the net bias, CURITY hacker, and hit next and add and next. And yes, I want to activate this scope now and hit finish. So after you do this, you need to keep in mind that what you need to do is, me show that. So if you see there is a blue exclamation mark there, so in order to do this, you just need to refresh this to fully activate it. So what you need is to click on this, refresh. So as you see, it has been refreshed. Let me expand this a little bit. And here the address pool, this is the address that I assigned from 11 to 100, and the other one is this, the below, right, the below one is the address that I basically saved it for my printer, as I explained. And then the address list, here I will see the address that the DHCP will assign it, which I'll show it to you just in a second. And this is the reservation, this is the scope option, this is like all the settings that I just made, and this is the policy. So right now what you need to do is, we will do some just check ping connectivity, and then we will do disable or obtain IPv4 sorry, not disable, just make the IPv4 as a to obtain it automatically, and then later on I'll see if I receive the address from the DHCP or not. So let's go back and see if I am able to do that or not. So Let me go back to the client machine. Let me log in. And on the client machine, come on, why that is too slow. Yep. What happened? My God. I don't know why this pop-up comes here. Let me remove this. I'm so sorry, guys. For some reason, it is Google pop-up or something. Whether yeah, I got through this. So let me So I typed already on my client machine IP config /all, and as you see, DHCP said it says no, and this is my right now the IP address of the client machine, which is NV 236. Let me ping the server right now, and I want to see if I'm able to see the ping connection or not. So ping 192.168.18.241. This is my server, right? I keep receiving replays, which is great. Ping by domain, that's good. This is my server IPv6, which is I should end with a 45C5, and ping with name. And one more time, ping with the server IPv6. That's because I just want to show I'm connecting with my domain controller and see if I'm still able to communicate. Because later on I want to make IPv4 obtained automatically, right? So if you go back to the server and let me on the server ping 192.168.18.236 is my client currently IP address. So that is good. I got replay. Let me ping by name hacker. It's great. This is the IPv6 of the client machine. Let me ping by this as well. So ping -6 and paste this. So I got to plan this as well, which is C7FD and nslookup.malik.com. Misspelled. Yep. Server name is securityhacker.malik.com, and if you come to this Windows machine and type nslookup, my God, let's look up malik.com. As you see, the securityhacker.malik.com is also here too. So right now I need to go back to the setting, right click on the start and go to the setting, click on network and internet. So after, let me go there first. So after you successfully, after I successfully joining the client to the domain and setting up the DHCP, I can switch the client machine's IPv4 setting back to the updated address automatically and obtain DNS server address automatically, like the IPv4 of the DNS and IP address both obtain it automatically. You need to go to properties and let me make this obtain it automatically because I use these addresses while I was joining the domain. I was joining this machine with my domain. The 236 is this machine address and 241 is my server IP address, and I was able to join this client machine with the domain along with configuring IPv6, which I'll show it to you right now. If you go back to this IPv6, as you see, I put the server IPv6 address here and I make IPv6 enable and check mark and it's still active. I don't want to make, some people in some company want to make it disable. I am also able to do that, but I don't like that because that makes an issue to change this server name from unknown to your domain. If you make it disable, that makes an issue. So IPv4, obtain it automatically, both. So here it's how it works. If you make it obtain it automatically, so we need to make this obtain it automatically because this will allow the DHCP server to assign the client a new IP address, right? So a new IP address in DNS server setting. And once the client obtain a new IP address from the DHCP server, the server will update its DNS record to reflect the new IP address for the client machine. And we don't need to manually configure the new DHCP assigned IP in the client IPv4 section. Let's say, for example, I got a new IPv4, right, from the DHCP. I don't want to manually configure this again. So I just leave this empty as obtain it automatically. And and then in other words, you don't need to add the new static IPv4. You should leave it as obtained automatically. So to check now the IP address, we need to run the command prompt, which is ipconfig. Let me close this too. Remember, I put IPv6 as there. It is still there. And if you now I type ipconfig /all. If you see, I got IP address that is start, that's end with 12. Before I used to have it 236, right? So if you go back to the DHCP server, which I used to have 236, and it doesn't assign the 11, right? Because 11 I reserve it, I exclude it for my printer. So if you go back to the server now, and on this server, you just need to go to the IPv4 DHCP manager, IPv4, and then in IPv4 go to the address list, and there you will be see a new IP address which is end with the 12 on the client machine. So now I'm on a server. You will see the new IP address that has been assigned to client machine. If you don't see it, you need to just refresh it. As you see, with the refresh button, it shows app. So this is a new IP address that has been assigned from the DHCP to my client machine. So if you see again, if you see the blue exclamation mark on each of these folders, you need to refresh this. This is the first step that you will be able to see the address. You need to obviously refresh this. And so this is all like how the DHCP and how the DHCP scope works. And again, I'm using a bridge adapter. I want to make an IPv6 and IPv4 enabled on both server and client machine. But on the client machine, after you install the DHCP server and DHCP scope, on the client machine, you need to just make IPv4 updated automatically, not IPv6. We need to leave IPv6 manually. So if you go back there again, which I will show it to you now. This is the server, sorry, let me go back. So if you go back there and type ipconfig all, if you see the DHCP is now enabled, is set to yes. Before I used to have it no, which I will show. If you see here, the DHCP is set to no, and I was having this IP address that end with 36. And now after configuring DHCP scope in DHCP, I got 12, that is end with a 12. So we don't need to manually config make obtain automatically make the IPv4 on the server obtained automatically and IPv6 obtained automatically on the server. We need to make it manually. Just remember this. So let me show that also on the server. So if you go back to the server and go to the control panel, and so we need to go to the network and sharing center, and Ethernet, and so we need to basically on IPv4 properties. So sorry for that. So if you go back to the server, on the server, I just want to show this. I don't want to make this obtained automatically IPv4. So on IPv4, as you see, this is my server IP address, this is the subnet mask, this is the gateway, and this is again the server IP address. So I don't want to make this obtained automatically. Just keep in mind, you don't have to. That is because, like on the server, we need to, especially we need to on the domain controller. So we need to DHCP server and DNS server must have a static IP address so that the client can reliably locate them. If the server IP changes due to the DHCP, clients will lose an connectivity. Sorry, if the server IP changes due to the DHCP, like if you make it updated automatically on the server, you will have a hard time joining the other client machine or the current client machine to rejoin it again, unless you put it back the static IPv4 and IPv6, because the DHCP because they rely on the server IP being consistent. Since the server is acting as a DHCP server, its IP address should not change. DHCP client rely on the server IP to obtain lease and DNS information. If you set the server to automatically obtain an IP, like if you make it obtain it to automatically, like you choose this and choose here too, you cleared everything, it might conflict with other devices in the network or cause service disruptions. This is when you type ipconfig /all on the server, it says DHCP enabled to no, which I showed it to you earlier. If you see here, DHCP is enabled to no on the server, that is the DHCP has to, the DHCP means that the server is not obtaining its IP address from the DHCP server. Instead, it has a static IP address configured manually. And server, especially domain controller, DHCP server and DNS server must have a static IP address for network reliability and consistency. And on the client, If you go back there on the client, let me show this IPv6 too. So don't make it update automatically. IPv6. IPv6 is still there. I don't want to remove this too. And let me show this one more time. It is still there. Close. And if you go back to the client machine, and on the client machine you need to control panel, go there. I got that freeze up or something. For some reason it has been freezed up. Let me completely close this and reopen it again. So on the client machine, while it's opening, on the client machine, what we need is to, on the client we need to make DHCP as I showed to you. It is enabled. Yes. That is because this means that the client is set to obtain its IP address dynamically from the DHCP server, and this is standard for most client machines to allow flexible IP allocations. And the client gets its IP, subnet mask, gateway, and DNS server information from the DHCP server automatically, because the DHCP is something that keep assigning IP addresses, right? And on the client machine, make the IPv6 manual or static. Don't remove, don't disable IPv6, and don't remove anything from the IPv6. So just make the IPv4 obtain automatically on a client machine. So right now, after this Windows loads up, we'll do some connectivity ping commands, and then I'll remove the IP address from the DHCP and see if the DHCP assign a new address, or it will give the same address back again to us. And then we'll stop the demo here. So let's wait for this while it's loading. So again, I'm emphasizing one more time, I'm using bridge adapter. I need to use IPv6 and IPv4 on both server and client machines in order to install DHCP and DHCP scope. On the client machine that has been connected, you need to make the IPv4 obtain automatically and leave the IPv6 static. Don't remove it on the client machine. And if you come to the server, don't remove anything from the server, like don't make the IPv4 obtain automatically on the server. Also, don't make the IPv6 on the server obtain automatically. Leave it static, everything on the server. And on the client, just leave the IPv6 static and make the IPv4 obtain automatically. Let me log in. So right now I will do one more thing, and then we will do ping connectivity, and we'll stop this. So let me go back. Let me first go to the command prompt. CMD. I'll check if this client machine is still part of the domain or not, because we make the IPv4 obtain automatically, right? This is something my IPv4 still doesn't have the server IP address, but the DHCP keep assigning it a new IP addresses for each client. Make this bigger. IP config /all So yes, I'm still having the domain malik.com hacker, and I see the DHCP enable set to yes, and this is the IPv4 address that the DHCP has been assigned. Let me do one more thing real quick. If you go back to the server, and on the server you go to the address lease, which is appear here, and what if you accidentally delete this? Let me delete it. So the DHCP that the IP address that has been assigned from the DHCP to the client machine has been deleted. Now let me check if the DHCP assigned a new IP address, or that is in, or give a deleted IP address that is in with a 12. So now if you refresh this, I'm no longer having the IP addresses, but if you go back to the client machine and you type the ipconfig all, here is still IP address, right? But you don't see it on the server. On the server you don't see which IP address this client has because you delete it, right? So what you need to run this command, ipconfig /release, and then one more time, ipconfig /renew. And let me go back there to see if the server assigned DHCP server assigned new IP address or still the old one. I got it back. So refresh. If you see, I got back the IP address that has been deleted, and I got back the old one. So one more and last thing, and then I'll good to go. Let me clear this. So since I'm no longer having IPv4 on a Windows, which let me show that one more time. Go to setting, and on the setting go to network, Ethernet, and if you see malik.com, it is still connected with my domain. That is because I make the IPv4 obtain automatically and IPv6 static. I don't remove anything from the IPv6 on the client machine. And remember to check the connectivity issue. Let's say if you have a hard time ping with a ping, you're not able, the server not able to ping the Windows, and the Windows not able to ping the server, you need to make all of these settings turn on. And remember, the firewall has to be turned on. Don't make it turn off on both server and Windows. Just turn on, turn on. Everything is pretty much turned on. So now I'm able to successfully ping, right? And if you go back to the change adapter option, and on the adapter option, hit on properties, and on the properties, I'll show you real quick. IPv4 is obtained automatically, but on the client machine IPv6 has the server IPv6, and I don't want to make this obtain automatically, otherwise the Windows or the client machine will be removed from the domain. And on the server, if you go back to the control panel, and if you click on network and sharing center and click on Ethernet, and on Ethernet you need to go to properties, and on the properties if you click on IPv4, it is still static. This is the IP address of the server. I don't want to update this automatically, otherwise as I explained, the client will have a hard time connecting with the server, and the server will not see the client, and you'll be even also have a hard time joining the future client machines with the server, right? And this is the server IP address, IPv6 address, of course. So everything is static on server, but on the client is IPv6 is only static, but IPv4 is obtained automatically. Let me do a ping and then I'm good to go. Ping, this is the server, ping hacker. So I'm able to ping this. and this is the server, the client machine IPv6 address. Let me ping this to ping -6 and set the client machine IPv6 address. I'm able to ping the 2 and ping with new IP address 192.168.18.12. This is the IP address that the DHCP assigned to the client machine. So let me ping the client machine. I'm successfully able to ping with a new IP address that has been assigned from DHCP server to the client. And one more time, ns lookupmalik.com. I'm able to successfully do this too. And the server name is securityhacker.malik.com. For this one, if it says unknown, I have created another video how to change this. So the server is pretty much pinging the Windows, and let me go to the Windows to ping the server too, right? ipconfig/all. So the client is still a part of the domain, which is the malik.com. Hacker is the host name. DHCP is enabled because I make the IPv4 obtained automatically. This is the new IP address that has been assigned from the DHCP server to our client machine. Let me ping malik.com. I'm able to ping this. And if you see this, this is the IPv6 address of server. Ping -6. This is good answer. Ping security hacker. That's good answer. Ping securityhacker.malik.com. and ping with IP address 192.168.18.241 is the IP address of the server. And I think I pretty much ping and show the connectivity of everything except the NS lookup on client machine. Yep. So that's all for today. I hope you have enjoyed and learned it and have fun with us. Thank you so much everyone being with me, and I'll see you in next video. Thank you and have a great day. Take care.